Buckley and Ms. Buckles, as a former CMP examiner, how much weight is given to private DBQ and independent medical opinion versus a contracted examiner's opinion and rationale?
That's a really great question, and there's several different answers, right? And I bet Carmela will agree with me that there's so many factors that go into it, right? So one of them is, who is your rater, right? You could flip a coin and see who is your rater, and what is their attitude about, let's say it's sleep apnea, right? I've heard some raters just will flat out not approve it as a secondary just on their own. They just won't, right? So I think who is your rater and who is your examiner is a big part of it. I've seen a lot of times where they'll say, no matter how good the medical opinion is from the outside provider and how terrible the one is from the CMP exam, I've seen them say that they're going to give more probative value to that CMP examiner, especially if your outside person doesn't have your C file. That's one of the things. Secondarily, I have, on the flip side, seen things where they got a bad CMP exam and they've said they gave more probative value to, let's say, my opinion because it was more thorough, right? So it really just depends on that, in my opinion, on that rater and what their interpretation of the medical evidence is, and if they're having a bad day.
Yeah, I would certainly agree that the rater has a ton of discretion at the agency level, the first level of the VA. The rater has a ton of discretion when it comes to how much weight to afford each piece of evidence. What the veterans law says is that every piece of evidence presented must be afforded is what's the word? It's there's a term I can't. It's not coming to mind right now. It's probative. It's proper probative weight, and they decide how much. Some things are heavier than others. Some things are lighter than others. They decide what gets the most attention, basically. And so it boils down to who's looking at your claim, how well they're trained, if they're pro-vet or not, if they have some other ideology. I mean, there's a whole lot of factors that go into veterans' claims, and there are real human beings. This is not computers making the decision, not yet. I hear they're trying to do that, but this is real human beings with real feelings and personalities and beliefs making the decisions. And
I think also, like, on the flip side, your private opinion might be terrible, right? So, I read one time from a cardiologist that said somebody's some crazy structural cardiac disease was related to Gulf War, right? So, like, just because the person is going to write a letter, if it doesn't make sense from, like, a medical legal standpoint, like, it's not going to hold a lot of value either, right?
Right. I mean, I let the Boise Regional Office have it earlier today, about 10, 11 o'clock this morning, because the examiner, the CMP examiner, not a nexus opinion, not a private opinion, said about my veteran client twice in two opinions. They went back and asked her to clarify and say again that his PTSD was aggravated by his tinnitus. Tinnitus, some people call it. And they denied the claim, saying that he didn't verify the stress and all this kind of stuff. Well, it's an aggravation claim. Oh, that's not necessary. But when you first think about it, it might not seem like tinnitus and PTSD correlate. And usually, I've got to be honest with you, I don't see it. But the examiner gave a very detailed, well-reasoned opinion on how his tinnitus affects his hearing, which affects his sensories, and everything else that goes into it, which causes him depression, which aggravates and illuminates his PTSD. And they still deny the claim. And then in the favorable findings, they wrote that there was a nexus between the PTSD and the tinnitus. We claimed insomnia secondary to tinnitus, but the examiner diagnosed PTSD. And so it opens up, I mean, what the VA raters have a lot of discretion. I'll put it that way.
Well, I also think and I'm not going to call out any of the contract exams companies by name, but I worked for a couple of them, right? And I had got, I tried to approve everything I could when I was an examiner. If like, I was very pro vet, obviously, when I was an examiner, but I got into a cuss match almost with one of the contract companies I was working for, because they will kick the exam back repeatedly. If it doesn't meet what they believe the specifications need to be to turn it over to the VA. So I remember there was like a 3-day period that I argued with the quality assurance company person for this contract company, because I tried to submit a favorable opinion, and they, without getting into all the details, they want specific things in their reports to turn over to the VA, right? And so an examiner shouldn't have to argue with whoever about their medical opinion.
Yeah, this might be a topic for a different day, but Leah is spot on with what she just said. I do not agree with and do not believe that that contractors should be allowed to have these quality assurance persons that go behind a doctor and the examiner and tell them basically they're making mistakes. I mean, I can get formatting, or I can get with formatting, or but not the substance of what the doctor has written in their opinion. In my opinion, that's wrong. The VHA, when they do exams, they don't have that quality assurance department. And so sometimes your CMP exam is held up, and your decision, you've been waiting a long time on the decision because it's being thrown around by the quality assurance department of a contractor. In my opinion, that's wrong, and that policy needs to change. And I believe OIG needs to investigate. But that's a VA OIG, but Office of Inspector General. But that might be a topic for its own YouTube video.
Yeah,
I would like to see some investigative journalism there.
I won't hold my breath on that one, my friend.